Hi there, this is Dave Dow, and I'm going to be talking today about three tips you can use to when teaching martial arts to children. Now, I've specifically done Muay Thai, traditional Jiu-Jitsu, Budo Taijutsu. So, but this works for any martial art. Um, when you're teaching a drill or an activity, these three tips will help you maximize the fun for kids and also make sure you keep their focus and get the most out of a drill. Now, in my kids' curriculum programs, I teach a much more in-depth way and have many more tips on how to create the most effective drills and how to maximize the learning. But for today, we're going to be talking about three tips you can implement immediately when teaching kids that should really make your drills a lot more effective. Now, first one. This one seems kind of obvious, but a lot of instructors forget it. Get the equipment, set up the drill ahead of time. Whatever you're doing, just mitt work, or if you're doing more game-based learning, whatever you need to do, make sure you get the equipment ahead of time. You don't want to get the kids all psyched about a really cool drill you're going to do, and then they have to sit around while you set it up. Now, that's going to kill the energy of the drill. It's going to make kids in general waiting around is a bad idea. They're going to start talking to each other, messing around, lose focus in general. So make sure you have all the equipment first, then get into the drill. Because you can get right into explaining it, everything else. Get right into the drill if you have it all set up ahead of time. And even if it's just, as I said, mitt work, have the mitts there. Don't have to go after you see what you're going to do, go grab them. Have all that equipment on hand. Okay. Second part is when you're demonstrating, let's say you're demonstrating jab cross hook or teep jab cross or something. Whatever technique you're doing, a footwork drill, whatever you're trying to show the kids, not only demonstrate it correctly, which everybody does, I mean, unless you're really bad at martial arts, but also demonstrate it incorrectly. I've found from my years of teaching with kids, you're showing them what you think is correct, and they're doing it wrong, and you're trying to correct them, and I could tell in their heads, and sometimes I've even had kids say, I am doing it like that. So, a lot of times, if there's a big habit that kids or even adults do with something, like on round kick, not pivoting the bottom foot, or dropping the hands when you punch, things like that. Or if it's something that a good chunk of the kids are going to do wrong, make sure you demonstrate that as well and say, don't do this. One, you're telling them, once again, especially for your auditory learners, they're seeing it done wrong, so visual learners get it as well. Because as I said, a lot of times they think they're doing it right, so they're like, wait a minute, why are you correcting me? I'm doing that. But if they see what it looks like doing wrong, that will help them not do that. It's kind of like those old photos, one with the X above over the top and one with the circle for the correct one. So that's what you're basically doing when you show it incorrectly. This is I taught martial arts. I've been teaching since 1988, teaching kids since 2000, maybe a little bit before that. And I still, a lot of times, would forget to show it incorrectly. Then I'd have a class where everybody, or a vast majority of kids, were doing the same exact mistakes, even though I showed them correctly. So keep that in mind. Third tip we're going to do today is set a goal for the drill. What I mean by that is, and set parameters. So and I've briefly talked about this in other videos. Don't try to correct everything in every drill. You're basically making the kids, and this even works for adults too, kids feel like they suck. If all they're ever doing, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, then they're going to get really discouraged and quit. Okay? So I always limit things to 3 things to focus on. So every drill, whatever you're teaching, like if you're teaching round kick, there's tons of like dropping the arm, pivoting the foot, rotating the hip over. There's a lot to focus on. The way one of my Muay Thai instructors, Anja Nelson, taught is there's 7 pieces to a good round kick. So that's a lot to focus on, even for adults. So, for instance, pivot on the what you think are the most important for that day or that age group. Now, on the younger kids, our kids kickboxing, which is the 4 to 6-year-olds, you don't want to work on the fine motor details. You could get that with definitely the teen Muay Thai, or to some degree the more advanced youth Muay Thai, which is our 7 to 14-year-olds. So you could definitely, 7 to 12-year-olds. You could definitely do that. But, for instance, a good rule, 3 things you could pick out on is the dropping the arm, turning the hip over, and returning to your stance at the end. Now, you might think the foot rotation is more important for that group. Then focus on that. But pick 3 things. Or if you're doing like a more boxing drill, you could be like hands up, rotate the wrist, pivot the hip. I know those seem really simple, but depends on what group you're working with. If you're working with your competition fighters, if you have like a kids competing team, and once again, I've taught adults obviously as well. I started teaching originally my first martial art taught adults, but I'm really focusing on kids here. So these are things that kids forget a lot, no matter especially your younger groups. So really focus on those 3 things. So to sum it up, set up the drill before you start it. Don't go be running and grabbing equipment in the middle of a drill. 2, demonstrate it correctly and incorrectly. That's a big mistake everybody makes. And also focus on 3 things in a drill. And that way also the kids know what to look for. And like when you were learning martial arts, and if you're still I learn, try to get better at the ones I've done. And there's I want to get better at Kali myself. So I'm always trying to think when I'm trying to improve something. I'm like, okay, there's tons of stuff I'm doing wrong. What is something I can focus on and get better today? It gives you something tangible for the child to focus on, so they're mentally engaged. They're not just doing like the drill without thinking. You want them mentally engaged too. So those 3 things, you do that, and actually if you do that with your adults as well, you'll see their skills skyrocket faster than they did before. So if you try these out in class, let me know if it helped, or if you have any questions on it, please comment below. Also, if you want a lot more information on how to teach kids Muay Thai with a developmental understanding, like child development understanding, so that you can be the most effective teacher, and also as a selling point, you're not just teaching martial arts with no understanding of how to teach kids. You're teaching it from a scientific standpoint. Check out my curriculums. You can find them at davidjdow.com, or for especially our Muay Thai program, you can check out our Kidz, Kidz. Our Muay Thai Kids with a Z, MuayThaiKidz.com. And see you next time.